Someone can call 911 and say, "Hi, I would like to order a pizza." And that's code for what?
That they're in a domestic violence situation.
If we were going to put together a five-step plan for someone who's currently in some type of dynamic like this, like a narcissistic or any type of abusive dynamic, what would you say would be the first five steps? Reaching out to someone so that you're not isolated, someone knows what's going on and they know that you want help. Number two is planning in silence. Number three, you said develop a plan, like, have an idea on like what your options are.
I would say, look up resources.
Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I am Vanessa Soul, your host. Thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you for investing your time and your energy into tuning in to today's episode. I greatly appreciate it. I'm super excited for today's episode. We have Clare Taber. She is a life coach, a wellness advocate, Army veteran, founder of Blissful Lotus Journeys. Claire, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Who are you and who are you not?
Okay, I love that question. Let me see. Um, well, I will tell you who I am is I am a person that enjoys helping others. I'm someone that enjoys speaking with others a lot. I love to connect and network, anywhere from at a coffee shop or on Threads or Instagram. Let's see, who I am not is I am not my pain and I am not my past. Um, and so the things that have challenged me in the past, those are not something that, I wear on me. I try to, process things and, kind of learn from them and, use them to move forward in a positive way.
So beautiful. Thank you for that. So, before we dive into like the deeper part of your message today and like the work that you do and your perspectives, I always like to touch on like how we got to where we are today. So, tell us about your journey as an Army veteran and being a single mom raising two children. What was that like?
I went to college and was paying for it myself, and then decided to join the military to help pay for college. I also come from a military family, so that's kind of what drove me to join the military. And I was Army National Guard veteran in as a medic, so I was a combat medic. That's what they called. And so basically, my passion is helping people. I didn't want to be a military police officer, which not to say that they don't help people, but I wanted to kind of fix people. I was kind of actually deciding between joining the Peace Corps or the Army, and at the time you had to have a college degree, and I was still in the process. So that's kind of what brought me to the Army. And I had met my ex-husband in the military, and we got married and had children. And, the marriage itself was pretty tumultuous. So we, eventually did split after 18 years, actually. And so, yes, I became a single mother, and I had two small children and kind of, raised them a lot on my own. So that was definitely a challenge. So, and it kind of happened suddenly. My, husband at the time actually was put in prison. And so basically, I kind of had to like figure things out quickly on, how to get a full-time job and, manage my finances and kind of regain my independence. So, that, that was a challenging time. But I kind of look at it now, well, if I can get through that, I can get through anything.
Yes. And that's what I love about your story is it seems like your journey is so much focused on turning the pain into the power, right? Like acknowledging the pain, which is I think is important because it just is. I've done healing work for myself and so many other people, and I think that, being in denial of the pain or the drama or the trauma or whatever it is, it might be helpful for the day. It might be helpful in the moment to get through the day. But long term, when we really acknowledge it and then turn it into empowerment, into awareness, and see how we can help others. So that's what really drew me towards your story. And I want to focus on maybe the heaviest part. What is, I don't know if we could define this. I have no idea if we could define this, but what do you think? How can we define domestic? And I didn't know I was in it. So, like, I didn't know I was in it until after.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So a lot of times, when you're in the thick of things and, so for me, it was basically being, an empath, that unfortunately got me into a little bit of trouble because I am always someone that wants to help people, that wants to understand people. And, my father growing up actually had depression and was actually hospitalized for it. So at the time, I visited him in the hospital and, kind of looking at him and you're like, I don't see a cast on you, you're not hooked up to machines, kind of learning to see, oh, okay, these are wounds that are not visible. So I, kind of learned about that and became really like empathetic. So, down the line when I became in relationships with people and they had, told me, yes, I have depression and things like that, so I go into like the fix it mode. So, there I am, trying to help them. And, how can I leave these people if they're going through this? But in hindsight, um, they actually, they may have had medication for it, but they weren't necessarily like seeking ongoing counseling. Um, so that, is something that I, will look forward in the future, things like that. Are they actively participating in their own recovery, in their own, behavior modifications and things like that because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I can't fix these people. You can be empathetic, but only to a point, and especially if you're kind of filling from an empty cup. Um, basically you're just draining your own energy, and if people are not giving back to you, you're not helping anybody, especially yourself. So that was kind of a life lesson for me, learning to, really, dig in and about self-care. And, it's a challenge as a mom, when, and I'll say a former people pleaser. I just always wanted to, help people and make people happy, but, it came to the point where it was, a detriment to myself.
Yeah.
Um, and then, kind of realizing as well with narcissistic abuse, sometimes people are, wearing masks. And, at the beginning of a relationship, they're everything that you wanted, everything on paper and things like that. Um, but a lot of times people who have narcissistic tendencies tend to kind of, um, you know, magnetize to empaths. So they see, people who are out there helping others and, they kind of mirror that behavior. So, taking the time to kind of realizing those red flags. And of course, while I was in the middle of it, not realizing, those little outbursts and things like that. And then also, are they, championing my success? Do they really want me to be successful? Or are they saying to my face, that they want me to, but behind the scenes, they're actually not necessarily rooting for my success. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
those are some hard life lessons.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I agree with you. Sometimes those red flags are happening, and because we're in it, like you can't see the forest through the trees. You're experiencing the red flags and they're uncomfortable, but you just sometimes you're just like, "Oh, this was just a misunderstanding," or "This was just a disagreement," or "We just got into a fight." Those types of things. So, you know, I I think having people around you really helps. I was a little isolated during this phase of my life. Were you also isolated, or did you have friends or family that you were able to open up to during this time? And then that's first question. And the second question is, I would love to hear about how you started to overcome the domestic violence and narcissistic abuse. Maybe what were some of the first shifts?
The goal sometimes of a narcissist is to isolate you. Um, and yeah, in fact, they definitely tried. So while I was married, yeah, that it was really isolating, and for whatever reason, I was embarrassed, and I had someone watching my children while I was working. And I was, felt embarrassed to even tell them like the story. Um, then I actually had another long-term relationship and, was involved with, I'll say it was undiagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. And yeah, they very much tried to isolate me from my friends, but thankfully, um, I had great friends that, would not give up on me. And, of course, they voiced their opinions on the relationship. And, thankfully they were understanding and, not so much, I told you so. But yeah, sometimes it gets to the point where you don't want to say it, and if you get back with them or not, um, you don't want to tell your friends, and because that they'll have that "I told you so" moment. So it is very isolating. Um, so for me, kind of digging myself out of that situation is really just deciding like not to go back, because there were a lot of breaks and times where I could get out of it. And it was interesting, the tipping point in my marriage wasn't like a major physical altercation. It was actually a time where he was in prison for like a traffic violation or something like that. And, I was told I had to go pick up the car and things like that. And meanwhile, I was working, two jobs with, my young kids. And, I had a friend, I asked them, I said, hey, can you do me a favor and, drive me to go pick up the car and just not ask any questions. And, so that for me, was a changing point. I'm like, why am I embarrassed about this? I didn't do anything wrong. I was working two jobs. It was a very tough year. We had many snowstorms. And there I was with my, two small kids, going through that. So all of a sudden, after like crying myself to sleep and things like that, I'm like, you know what? I can do this by myself. And, so really just kind of like digging up the courage.
Mhm.
And I, did a lot of research.
Yeah. So
Um,
was it that arrest that that partner had that gave you the space to make that decision? I'm just trying to understand for myself.
Actually, that's a great point. Maybe because it was, so kind of like constant, emotional and physical. Um, yeah, maybe that actually did give me the space to kind of like take a moment and figure it out. Like, I
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah. So for my story, it was my partner had went on two different like work retreats. There was one month, we'll just say it's in December. And that gave me enough space, even though I was kind of coping and self-medicating with alcohol, right? And there was some PTSD that I was having that, from the relationship so that was kind of happening but it still gave me space, even though I wasn't as clear minded as I would like to have been. It still
Right.
gave me, I was still in my own energy. And I was able to see my patterns and habits a lot more clearly. Like, oh my God, I have to have a drink right now. I just finished work at 3 p.m. and I'm running to the kitchen to go get a drink. And it was just because of the stress of the relationship. The second trip that my partner went on, that was actually when I made a run for it. I don't know if I'm being dramatic when I say make a run for it, but I literally just, there was definitely a sense of urgency. I packed up all my stuff in one weekend. I got an apartment. I got to the leasing office 5 minutes before they closed. I was showing them all of my financial statements. I didn't have everything. Somehow, by the grace of God, they approved me, and moved my stuff in like the next morning at 9 a.m. right before that partner got back. So I had enough space. And I think it's important for us to talk about this, because if you are in these situations where you are isolated and you can't talk to people, or you try, or you're embarrassed, or there's so many nuanced energies happening. It's like, look for the space. If you get a moment of space, if you get the opportunity, maybe reach out to a friend, maybe self-reflect, try not to reach for the drink or whatever coping mechanism you might have in the moment, see if there's a better option of relief, and then recognize those opportunities of space that Claire and I are mentioning. So that's a great point to highlight. Do you have any thoughts on that, or anything else you want to share around that?
No, definitely. And sometimes when you do go through it, like kind of repeatedly, it becomes almost the norm, and you only almost don't realize like, this is not okay. And sometimes, yeah, it does take someone else to be like saying it out loud, and you're like, wow, I can't believe like this is like the situation. And you know, I think about it this way now is like, what is the advice would I give to a friend that was going through the same situation? And, would I, tell them to, put up with it? Um, and so that's kind of how it's kind of like I reparent myself, on situations. So, yeah, definitely you kind of have to come up with some sort of plan, when you do have those moments of clarity. And yeah, if you can have a friend, help you out, even if it's just temporary, while you can have that space, while you can make, kind of more of a permanent plan. And then I think the other key aspect to it is, don't be embarrassed about it. A lot of people don't talk about it. And I think that's, a huge problem. The fact that they are kind of isolating themselves because they're embarrassed or whatever the situation. And everyone kind of knows someone that has either gone through it or has gone through it themselves. And,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a stigma that it's the women who are the empaths and the men who are narcissistic. However, I don't know if that's really true. I see it flipped so often. I don't there's probably no standard or regular. There's probably no way to generalize it. I have no idea. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, because some people wouldn't expect men to be going through the same thing. I think
I mean,
narcissistic abuse is narcissistic abuse regardless of gender. Yeah, any thoughts from your experience or people that you coach?
yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are definitely, women or that can be the abusers, or, another domestic partner that is abusing men. And I think it's even harder for them to, speak up. If you want to reference like the Johnny Depp case, no matter what side you're on, there was definitely a lot of toxicity, and they kind of lived through that. And, it finally took all the explosive action and the fact that they're celebrities to, have that discussion. But I think it is a really important discussion to have. Yes, in fact, men can be, the victims in the situation. And no matter whether you're male or female or whatever gender you identify as, it's important to, not be embarrassed and to ask for help, whether it's a friend or whether it's a coach or, whoever. And I've found that, social media is actually not a bad place, because something like Threads, you can almost be somewhat anonymous. Um, and if it's an account where your friends may not necessarily have access to, or if you could reach out privately to a coach, that's a great way to reach out. So there are a lot of resources, some of them low cost, some of them free. So just even having someone to talk to, just kind of bounce off ideas and that. So, I think that's a good option for people.
Yeah, if we were going to put together a 5-step plan for someone who's currently in some type of dynamic like this, like a narcissistic or any type of abusive dynamic, what would you say would be the first 5 steps? It doesn't have to be in any order, but maybe like like the most important thing. So we're talking about reaching out to someone. That's probably one of them,
Right.
right? Reaching out to a friend or a coach or someone who can support you, so that way you're not isolated anymore. So that's
Right.
one. What are four others?
I would say an important one, if not the second most, is you kind of have to plan a little bit in silence so that other person is not aware, because that I think that can definitely confound everything. So it just makes it so much worse. So, and that can be hard. Uh, if they find emails or things like that. But there are different agencies that can help that will keep you anonymous. You can, do the thing where you can call 911 and order a pizza. Um, so that's and
Important.
very
I didn't
important.
know that one. That's a very important one. So someone can call 911 and say, "Hi, I would like to order a pizza." And that's code for what?
That they're in a domestic violence situation.
Okay,
So I know it's in the US. I'm not sure if it's,
sure.
worldwide, but yeah, so they're actually trained to keep anonymous and to actually kind of keep you on the phone. And so you don't necessarily have to keep speaking.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's huge and that's
That's
really
huge.
important. I
Okay,
would
thank you for that.
say, you know, just developing, the plan and, whether it's temporary or permanent, I think that's, probably the third.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so let me
and
recap here really quickly. So first one, again, these aren't in order, but just so we're keeping track.
sure.
First one is reaching out to someone so that you're not isolated. Someone knows what's going on and they know that you want help. Number two is planning in silence. This means like don't threaten your partner that you're going to leave, even in an argument, and I think people we do that sometimes, but this is not the time to do that. And if you need to, call 911 and order a pizza, right? But plan in silence. Basically, use discernment so that way you're not exposing yourself. That's how I'm interpreting that for your own safety and protection and probably your kids. Number three, you said develop a plan, like, have an idea on like what your options are. That's number three. And then two more, four and five. What do you think?
I would say look up resources. There are so many resources out there, whether it's a victim's witness advocate in your city, the police themselves. And, we've come a long way. I mean, there's a long way to go with domestic violence, but um, looking for resources, I was able to find a place called Action Inc. in my area where they were able to help me pay for my mortgage, to help me pay for my electric bill. And I'll say a short story that's kind of related to this. I was out to dinner with my kids Christmas evening one year at a hotel, and a friend that I hadn't seen for 1,000 years from elementary school, she was there with her two children and just kind of like hanging around, and I wasn't sure what she was doing there. And basically, I found out later she was doing a drop off with the father, and she was petrified. Um, she was actually kind of pretending that she was texting him, and I kind of found out that she really wasn't. And so at the end of it all, I was like, I actually sent my kids home. My older son was driving, and I was like, "Can you come back in an hour?" And I was like, "I just need to be with her right now." And and so I was able to speak with her and, give her the resources that I had used. And, she was in like a little bit of a different situation. She wasn't married, but she was in like a very volatile situation, and she just didn't know, which way was up or which way was down, and she was embarrassed. And so the fact that there was resources available, and I was able to tell her, I was like, you can, they'll help you get an attorney, because he wasn't doing child support, because, and so just, reaching out and looking up those resources are really important. Um, and I don't know if this would be the last one, but where I'm at is, kind of when you're at the end of the other end of the tunnel is, if you can help somebody else out, um, it's so rewarding. And it also kind of like helps you heal. Um, I've come a long way, and I'm very thankful for it. And, the fact that I can help other people. Um, but, you know, there's so many life lessons that I have learned, and the fact that I can help other people, and kind of us talking about the important to do items is it's so important to help other people. So as I said, I don't know if you have anything to add for number five, but I think kind of like going full circle is for me.
Powerful. I'm just going to recap them from everyone. And what I'm hearing for you on number five is yeah, help someone and maybe even share your story, because that allows you to process your own experience. It allows you to have compassion for yourself or for others if you're helping someone who went through the same thing. So I love that. So number one, reach out to a friend or a trusted source or a coach. Again, the goal is to get out of isolation, because that's typically a common thread with people in these situations. Number two, um, I think plan in secret, just use discernment, try not to like expose yourself, because that's just going to cause to more conflict, most likely, right? If you're already in the situation. Number three was to have a plan. Was that number three? Have a plan. Start thinking of options, think of what's possible for you. Just, and I'm going to add in my own 2 cents here. Don't limit your options, just think about your options, because step four is getting support and looking up the resources. Like Claire said, she was able to get her more help with her mortgage, the attorney support that your friend got, or maybe you too. So, and that's amazing. I never would have thought that would have been available, because I can imagine the financial strain would be, or the financial worry would be one of the reasons that would keep someone, feeling stuck in this type of situation. And then number five, really process your situation, process your experience and help others if you can, and be aware. Like if you went through it, you're probably going to be aware when you see signs of someone else, going through a certain situation, you could ask questions. I've done that. And someone's like, how did you know? And I'm like, not, I didn't, I wanted to say I've been there, done that, but I didn't. I just said, I'm paying attention. Like I just see the signs and, I just wanted to check in. I'm not making assumptions, but I just wanted to check in. And if you tell me nothing's wrong, then I will go my own way or whatever, and I won't bother you about it. But just checking in on each other. I think that's so important. So amazing stuff. Thank you for those five steps, if you will. Really, it's just kind of like the bridge. Like I think when we're making any type of transformation, when we're making any type of change, I think our brain is kind of like, okay, what's step one? And we're overwhelmed half the time. So
Right.
it's just like, wait, what do I do? So I think that that is really helpful. Um, my next question to you is, how do you stabilize yourself now? Because I love that you said that earlier in my question, who are you, who are you not? You said something very powerful. You said, I am not my pain, I am not my past. Um, how do you nurture yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically? How are you quote unquote healing or integrating? How do you anchor yourself day to day?
Well, so I am someone that has undiagnosed like ADHD. So it's important for me to kind of like stay busy, whether it's just creatively or physically. Um, Yoga has always kind of helped me benefit in my life, but I also enjoy running. So I went back to school at 40 and you know, I could feel the anxiety kind of building throughout the day. So I'm like, I just need to go for like a 2 mile run and just like hash it out and, blare the music and, you know, process, the emotions and everything. So sometimes it's, allowing yourself to kind of feel the feelings, give yourself that time and, give it a day or two and be like, okay, I've felt the feelings, I've dealt with them. Now it's the kind of time to kind of use that energy for something positive. And, whatever it is, like for me, I enjoy journaling. I keep everything in my notes section. Um, Eventually it turned into a book. But whatever it is, whether it's, painting, singing, I love to go for walks. So, for me, just getting out that energy, and just not storing it in me because I think, when I used to kind of keep things in and, it really kind of builds up and sometimes it manifests like physically, so that has helped me
Mhm.
and even just kind of letting things go and sometimes to a fault I'm always like what's the next step, what am I doing, so even just like taking a break from the what's my plan for the future every second of the day. So just kind of, having friends to, hang out with and talk and
Love it.
is really helpful.
Love it. Love it. Do you want to share your book?
Okay. Success through spirituality.
Success Through
So
Spirituality. Beautiful. When did it come out and what is it about?
it was just published in July. And so kind of as I said, it's been a work in progress for many, many years, all my notes and feelings and everything. And wanted to incorporate affirmations and things like that. So I have coloring pages for people, to kind of, meditate and process. The other thing I do is at the end of each like chapter or lesson, I like to kind of pose a question to the reader, and then I give them space where they can kind of journal their own thoughts and meditate. And so that's, hopefully they can
Yes.
process whatever the lesson is in their own way. And
I
so
love
yeah,
that. And
the
I love that it's interactive. I love that
Yeah,
it's
I actually I can't take full credit for it. I love Michelle Obama's book Becoming. Awesome book. And so she kind of does something a little similar. And I highly recommend reading that book. And
cool.
so yeah, one of my favorites.
So good. Well, I think today's conversation is so powerful. And to wrap up, I want you guys to at least know about her link, Claire's links. And if you resonated with this conversation, feel free to connect with her. And then, so I'm going to give you her website. And right after I do that, Claire, if you have, you just gave us a book recommendation, actually. That's typically what I ask people. But if you also want to give us a quote and then one way that people can work with you or just stay connected, that will be great. So her website is blissfullotusjourneys.com. Blissfullotusjourneys.com. And then we also have her Instagram, Claire at the beach. So these links are here in the description, guys. So you just go down below, click, it'll take you directly there. And then her Facebook is also there. So yeah, if you want to do another book rec, you can. No need to if you don't want to, or a quote. And then we would love to hear just something short and sweet, one powerful way that people can work with you or connect with you.
Oh, sure. I mean, there's so many. I love books. I'll say one book and one poem. So, Many Lives, Many Masters is a great book. I forget who the author is, just because I've read a couple recently, but it's a great to kind of it's a great perspective on life, and especially around this rapture time that everyone is talking about. It makes you kind of be introspective about life purpose and, possibly living more lives than one. And then a favorite poem was Maya Angelou, and Still I Rise. And basically, I kind of feel like it encompasses I just really identify with the poem. Her story is unbelievable. And just how she took her pain and turned it into power, and she became a great poet, author, orator. So I just love her so much. And so yeah, if people want to check out my website, they can also send me an email, blissfullotusjourneys at gmail.com, or find me on Facebook. It's under Blissful Lotus Journeys. Shoot me a DM. I love connecting with people like you that are using your story to help so many people. And so yeah, I love to connect.
Beautiful. And the author for Many Lives, Many Masters is Brian Weiss.
That's
Brian,
it.
Weiss. Yes.
Have you read that book?
I didn't finish it. So
Okay.
in every it's like it's almost like clockwork. Every 3 to 4 months someone mentions that book and I'm like, oh, I gotta finish it. I gotta finish it. So it really is good.
Yeah.
it's not that I didn't finish it because it wasn't good. I
Right.
just I really had to
It's
have a
heavy. It's a
it's
lot.
heavy, but for me, I'm a starter. I gotta work on finishing things.
I'll start like a bunch of different books and I was like, yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
wrap
yeah.
it up.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you, Claire, for your time, your energy, and your wisdom. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Please leave us a review, a comment on the episode. Really engage with us. We would love to see that. And namaste, everyone. Have a great day.